What led me to IASIS neurofeedback was a series of events that occurred over a long period of time, starting back with some post-traumatic stress disorder that I received from both the military and from law enforcement. Mainly law enforcement in the recent years, which led to me having a heart attack and several surgical procedures, all stemming from the stressors and the activities and particular traumatic incidents that I had seen as a law enforcement officer working in the Los Angeles area. I was given the information, I was introduced to neurofeedback by my cardiologist, and I pursued trying to find somebody that would assist me. And at the time, I located somebody in Los Angeles area, and I became aware of IASIS, and I started to have treatments. What led me to neurofeedback with IASIS, as stated before, it was a series of events that had occurred in my life, starting off with the loss of my father, and then I got into an officer-involved shooting, which was extremely of close proximity. It was a face-to-face, point-blank shooting. I actually got shot directly in the face, and the bullet came right to my nose and skimmed from approximately 6 inches away. The concussion, the effects of being shot in such a close proximity was very detrimental, not on the onset because of my very strict training and my own personal behavior of dealing with high stress situations, for I had been through these types of situations before, but none of that magnitude where I actually had been shot at that close proximity in the face. Approximately a month and a half later, I winded up having a heart attack, and I winded up having surgery. During the process of rehabilitating myself with cardiac rehab, I started to notice that I had developed anxiety. I started to develop depression. I started to develop all these different situations that were causing me not to feel myself, something I had never experienced before. Going through this is when I finally had reached out, and my cardiologist had recommended neurofeedback, and IASIS came into mind through the research that I had done. And the feelings that I had were to the point where I couldn't even get up out of bed in the morning. I wouldn't sleep at night. I started to have panic attacks doing the normal things that I was so accustomed to doing. I'd worked out with a history of being a bodybuilder, being a power lifter, being a strongman competitor. Things that I had done for years, all of a sudden it became foreign to me. And every time I started to go to do something like this, I started to have panic attacks. After the first session of IASIS was invigorating. It was just kind of, how can I say, I couldn't even believe that I was myself again. I woke up the next morning feeling like I needed to get up to go run, like I needed to get up, go to the gym, like I needed to do something, as opposed to laying in bed until 2, 3 in the afternoon, which was the norm for me. I felt like I had mental focus. I felt like I had, it was invigorating to me.
What happened to your symptoms?
My symptoms, if I was to say on a scale to 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being the least, my symptoms of depression, my symptoms of anxiety were a 9 to 10 at times, to the point where they would take me back to the hospital thinking that I was having a heart attack, and actually to come out to find out that it was a panic attack. Because of the similarities because of my history, I had no other choice or to respond to the hospital to ensure that it wasn't. So that's how bad they were. After IASIS, the difference was a 1 to 2 of my panic attack symptoms. Again, bringing it back down to almost near nothing, where it was almost gone. During the sessions, as they continued to have the sessions, I noticed that it almost went away completely to the point where I'm at today, where I can sit here and talk to you. Driving, 100 miles for me today was nothing in comparison to before I had IASIS, where I was so afraid to drive down the road because I was away from my comfort zone, which was my bed, my house, to where now I can do anything. I can fly. I can get on the airport and get on the airplane. I can work again. I feel great. I don't have that anxiety factor, those panic attacks like I used to have until now.
Excellent.
If I had a room full of chiefs of police right now, and you gave me 2 minutes to sit there and make them, for lack of a better term, believers as to what IASIS did for me and the necessity for them to reach out to their human resource department, work in conjunction with the city, with the county, with the state, and get their officers to have neurofeedback through IASIS, I would yell and scream, stop all training immediately. Get your guys on IASIS. Why? Because with my background, being one of the highest decorated officers in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, for risking my life and doing the things that I did, it shows that I am one of those types of officers that went above and beyond. And they would listen to me. And the reason why they would listen to me, because of what it did for me. It changed my life completely. To get them to believe in IASIS would be through me, through what's happened through me. The events, the things that have happened, my downfall, my pitfall of having this traumatic injury occur to me. And because of the problem with law enforcement, where a lot of them are reluctant to come forward and express the feelings that they're having inside, the anxiety, the depression, that leads them into doing other things that they shouldn't be doing. That alone right there is significant of a factor to reach out to them and say, listen, you got to have this happen to them. It's going to regulate them. It's going to bring them back to norm, refocus them, and put out not only an officer back on the field, but a real focused, fine-tuned officer back out to serve the community. IASIS technology is something that people with degrees in science, degrees in the medical field can really only understand. But for me, it's a lifesaver. And that's all that matters to me. IASIS is what transformed and changed my life to the point where I'm at today. Before IASIS, we couldn't have a conversation or an interview. Before IASIS, I was sleeping in bed all day long, panicking, worrying, depressed, being pushed to take medications, which I never wanted to take, nor did I take. And therefore, I sought out IASIS. If it wasn't for IASIS, honestly, I wouldn't be alive. I'd be breathing, but I wouldn't be alive.